What's up guys, Eric here. Today we're going to be talking about one of the most highly requested topics on this channel, and that is going to be setting up and running live Autotune. We're going to be talking hardware, we're going to be talking software, we're going to be talking programming, the whole nine. But by the end of this video, if all goes well, you'll be able to live out your wildest T-Pain auto-tuned dreams on stage for the rest of your life. Sound good? Let's do it. Okay, now before we begin, as always, a little background, a little setup. The method I'm going to be showing you today is the most common, the most prevalent, the most popular, the most tried and true method of live Autotune. And that is going to be to use an external interface, a Universal Audio Apollo, running Autotune on it, taking commands from your Ableton playback session. Now, you might be asking, whoa. What, I gotta spend a bunch of money now? Maybe. Okay. Now, little history lesson here for you. When software Autotune started to become more prominent in live shows, we were running computers that frankly were not as powerful as they are today. And so trying to run Autotune, something that is a historically processor intensive task in your playback session, starts to introduce, CPU load, instability, as well as latency, which is like a death sentence for live. So they outsourced that task to the Apollo interfaces. Why the Apollos? Because they all have a computer inside of them. They have an onboard computer that can do its own separate processing from your computer, also known as DSP, Digital Signal Processing, right? And the result is you get a great Autotune, effect, none of the latency, none of the instability, okay? Now, fast forward to today, and we've got computers that, these things are freaking lightning powered, 10 gazillion gigs of RAM and SSDs and all this stuff. They are way more powerful than they've ever been. And if I'm honest with you, I have seen people running live Autotune out of their sessions using just whatever regular interface. I've seen it with Focusrite Scarletts and Motus and the whole nine. And that's all well and good. Just know that when you do that, you are introducing the risk of, again, stability, as well as potential latency. As long as you know that, proceed as you wish, okay? So, to get started, we're obviously going to need a universal audio interface that can be a solo, a twin, a quad, doesn't really matter. We're going to need Autotune from the UAD plugin library, and you're obviously going to need Ableton, and then a little help from your friend, me. I'm going to show you how to set this stuff up. So first step, just connect your interface to your computer. Hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory. Then, however, we need to jump into the computer and we need to do a little bit of under the hood wiring. We need to basically set it up such that Ableton can send MIDI commands out of itself and have it land in the UAD console software. For those of you who aren't familiar with console, it is basically a program that is a visual representation of everything that's happening on the interface. It allows you to monitor and control all the plugins and parameters that you're using. So we need to be able to get those two programs on the same computer to talk to each other. And the way we do that is using what's called the IAC driver. So let's set that up. First thing, we're going to jump into our audio MIDI setup. Boop. There we go. Whoop. Wow. I swear I can spell. By the way, if this isn't obvious already, we're doing this on a Mac. If you're doing this on a PC, my apologies. I don't know how to do that. I wish you the best of luck. And if you figure it out, I don't know, make a video. Tag me in it. Okay, back to business. When you have Audio MIDI setup open, you're going to go to Window, Show MIDI Studio, and this giant mess comes up. If you've never opened MIDI Studio, it's essentially a giant disorganized pile of all of the devices your computer has ever connected to that are capable of transmitting MIDI. Luckily, the thing we're looking for is different from all the rest, and it's this red box here. It says IAC Driver. You're going to double click that, go to Devices Online and make sure that's checked. Now, some people will relabel the device here when at this juncture. We'll call it something like Autotune or whatever. You can do that, it's fine. I think IAC Driver is a perfectly distinguished name and is recognizable on its own, so we'll leave it as is. Fun fact, IAC Driver stands for Inter-Application Communication Driver. The more you know. All right, so we're going to close audio MIDI setup, and now we're going to go into console. All right, now we're going to jump into our settings, go to your MIDI tab here on the right, go to device, hit IAC Driver, and so we have console, we've established the IAC Driver plumbing and connected it into console. Now while we're here, drop Autotune into one of your insert slots, open it up, and we need to configure some of the settings in here too. You're going to go into hit your gear here in the top right hand corner, preferences, and we're going to go to MIDI control. Now in this menu, you're going to see all of the different parameters in Autotune that you can control remotely via MIDI CC. Now feel free, you can go nuts, do whatever you want here. The most common parameters that I'm familiar with and see used are these four: retune speed, key, scale, and flex. Now I'm not 100% sure, but I feel like these values are defaults. They might not be, but you know, if you open up your Autotune, you tear the plastic off and open this menu here and you see 15, 16, 17, 18, I probably recommend just leaving them there. You can make them whatever you want, but if they are in fact the defaults, it's nice to leave them that way, because if you ever move your session to another computer or you're using a different interface or whatever, if you're always using default values, there isn't really as much risk of you setting up in soundcheck and, you know, your programming not working and you're like, oh, right, because I was fancy and I like made custom numbers or something. So look, you can be as fancy as you want, but this isn't the place to do it. Okay, lastly, while we're here, a side note, helpful to adjust your input type to whoever's yapping down your mic. If you got a low male, set it as such. You got a regular general mid-range, alto tenor, that's totally cool, and then sopranos all the way up here. Set it appropriately. It helps Autotune sort of focus and select frequencies to listen to help it grab the notes that it needs to grab. All right, now we can jump into Ableton. And just to double check this really quick, I'm going to hop in the settings, and just to make sure our IAC driver has been set up correctly, I'm going to go to link tempo and MIDI, and I see IAC driver right down here. If it wasn't there, that means we got a problem, but it is, and that's great to see. So close that out, head into our session. Now today's session is brought to you by the Ultimate Playback Template. What is the Ultimate Playback Template, you ask? Oh my gosh, have you been living under a rock? Just kidding. The Ultimate Playback Template is a template that I built at the request of the community, that is you guys, to help you and guide you in building the cleanest, most powerful, and organized live playback sets on the face of the earth. If you want to pick up a copy of this for yourself, I'll leave a link in the description. Shameless plug over. All right. So first things first, I'm going to need to set up some MIDI tracks. I'm going to Command-Shift-T for a MIDI track, and I'm going to set the output to IAC Driver right here. I'm also going to change it to white so it matches everything else, and I'm going to Command-D to make 4 of them. I'm going to shrink them a little bit, and I'm going to go, too much. There we go, that's good. Now I'm going to go ahead and label these things. These are our 4 parameters that we're going to be controlling. That's going to be speed, key, scale, and flex. Now for me personally, I like to highlight them, Command-G, put them in a group, call it AT for Autotune, and that's just to make things like navigation and organization a little cleaner and easier. You don't have to do that. There's no advantage to doing it. I just like to do it. Now, let's get to programming. So we need to build some MIDI clips that contain some MIDI CC data. So I'm going to drag here, Command-Shift-M, and make 4 clips, and let's start programming. So I'm going to double click on the first clip, and we're going to open the clip editor at the bottom. Now, we're going to need to jump into the envelope section. If you are we're on Ableton 12 right now, but if you're on Ableton 11, your envelope section is going to be in this little panel here. Just click around until you see these 2 drop downs, MIDI, which are going to say MIDI control and pitch bend. We want MIDI control as it is, but in the second drop down, we want to change that to the numbers that we set in the Autotune settings. Remember those? 15, 16, 17, 18. So for speed, we're going to do 15. And then from here, it's just a matter of drawing some automation. So pay attention up here to the retune speed. I'm going to click to create a node. And then as I drag it around, you'll see the speed changes, and you can even see see it tuning me. Cool. Great. I'm going to set that at like, okay, so here's the funny thing. So if you're familiar with MIDI CC, you know that the values range from 0 to 127, but the parameters in Autotune do not. Retune speed is 0 to 400, flex is 0 to 100. Needless to say, it's not a one-to-one relationship. So when you're finding the settings that you want, it's going to be a little bit trial and error, a little bit drag and error here. So I'm going to set this right now to, let's just say, all right, we're near 200. Now that's almost imperceptibly slow, but I'm going to set it here anyway, just because frankly, I don't want to be hearing myself hard tuned all the time. And as you can see, it's a little tricky. Oh my gosh. All right, fine. 202 is fine. Moving on. Actually, before we move on, I also tend to label my clips. I'll say S202, right? So it's speed 202. The reason that's helpful is that if you want to reuse that parameter later in your set in another section, another song, you can just copy, paste, option, drag, whatever, fly it over there, and instead of reprogramming it every time. Make sense? Okay. Next up is key. Same thing. Envelopes. We're going to go down and select 16 for key, and in our case, let's just do C. We'll keep it at C, and we'll label this C. Moving on, scale, same thing, parameter 17, and let's just use major because, well, most things are major. Side note for you music dorcases out there, music theory dorcases. You're probably thinking, oh, technically I don't even need the scale parameter. Everything's a relative of everything else. And, A minor is C major and blah, blah, blah. This is all true. Totally true. And if you don't want to use this parameter and you want to program everything as a relative scale of everything else, go for it. You're pretty much going to be the only one who thinks that's cool, because no one else is going to know you did that. And if anyone else needs to get into your session, they're going to be like, dude, where's your scale? So do what you want. Okay, flex. So flex, I'm going to choose parameter 18. Now, if you're not familiar with FlexTune is a parameter in Autotune that essentially controls the selectivity of how much, literally like how many notes, wrong notes, Autotune will correct. And as its name suggests, it kind of, the more it's engaged, the more natural your tuning experience is going to be. It's not going to tune everything. So if you can set this however you please, obviously experiment with that as you wish. However, most of the time, I'm actually just used to seeing people use this as basically as an on and off switch. So what they'll do is, let's say I'll make a second clip here, Command E, and I'm going to call this, here, I'm going to program the first one, flex at 0, which means it's inflexible, which means it tunes everything. And then I'm going to go to this clip and I'm going to call it bypass. I'm going to make it red. You don't have to do this stuff. It's just organization. And you can see when I drag that up, flex tune goes to 100. Now this can be helpful because if you have sections of a song, like an intro, an outro, a bridge or something, where your singer wants to talk to the audience without having a tune effect on, this is great. So let's say I'm just going to play it here. You'll see, pay attention here. You'll see flex tune will be at 0, and we're moving along. And then we're going to come up on another section here where now I want to talk to the audience. You can see no tuning is happening anymore. Flex is at 100. And actually, if I set this here, when we exit this section, it'll turn back off, and you can see that tuning is now happening. It's slow retune speed, but so again, you can kind of use that as as an on-off switch if you want. So that's actually it, guys. Once you have figured all that stuff out, now you just rinse and repeat. You do it for every section of every song. Just make sure there's a clip that has the parameter set that you want for that section or that song, and fly them all over the place and build out your programming. Now, if there are any of you out there who are looking at this and be like, man, seems a little tedious. I'm going to be dragging this automation all up and down, trying to get these numbers and stuff like that. I got you. I'm a little bit ahead of you. Before you got here, I made this little AT presets project with this little channel strip group thingy here. And this is basically a folder of Autotune preset clips common ones, right? So you've got speeds of 0 and 25 and 50 and 400, etc. I've got every key under the sun, every scale. Well, actually not, just 3 of the major scales. I mean, if you're trying to, if you're trying to tune yourself to Barnes or Carlos or whatever, Slendro, go nuts, but I didn't plan for that. And then obviously your typical flex values, 0, 50, and 100. These are here just as shortcuts to help you save time. So if you're building a new set, you can drag this thing in here just like I just did. And instead of manually programming everything, you'd say, oh, cool, yeah, I want, in this song, I want speed of 50. I want this thing to be in, we'll do A minor, and actually I'm going to put flex at 100 because I can hear myself being tuned and it's annoying. And then from here, drag them out, copy paste, fly them around, do whatever you need. You can keep this folder in your session just as kind of like a little repository if you need, some handy quick programming, or program it away, blast it away, keep your set totally clean. Whatever you want to do is up to you. The only thing I ask is that you enjoy it, and I hope it saves you some time. I'll put a link to that little tool as well in the description. If you want to pick that up, feel free. That's it, guys. That's the lesson. We're done. I hope this all made sense to you. Whether it did or it didn't, let me know. Hop into those comments. Let me know what you thought. Obviously, let me know what other stuff you'd like to see me cover. In the meantime, also do me the huge favor. You know how it goes on YouTube. Like, comment. You're already doing that. Subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And share this video with someone who you think it would help. Share it with your mom. Share it with your dog, your grandma, your other grandma. Share it with every grandma you know. Share this video. Let's tune these grandmas. Let's tune them up. And until next time, you guys take care. See ya.